Now joining us on the latest GNU cabinet talks is SABC News Political Editor Mzwandile Mbeje. Mzwandile, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. It's been quite a busy day for you today. I'm sure everybody wants to hear from you. What is the latest on the ground? But let's start with this letter of demands. Quite a host of demands. They want 11 cabinet posts, deputy positions there on those particular ministries, but also DG positions. Talk to us about this.
Well, part of what has, I would say, is delaying the composition or the constitution of the executive is that the president and the team that is negotiating has to navigate through all those issues that arise as a result of the negotiations that are underway. And then, of course, when you look at what the DA wants, clearly that would raise a lot of discussions, particularly amongst those who are taking part, the ANC in particular. So those issues are being dealt with. In fact, Mfundo, I can tell you now that sometime today, earlier today, the president and the leader of the DA, John Steenhuisen, did have a meeting to try and iron out some of these matters, especially because you saw the spirit in which the president will engage in his weekly letter, where he basically said, you know, we need to think of the interests of the country first, not so much about positions. It was somehow indirectly dealing with that matter where the DA basically laid out what it wanted in terms of the positions, quite key positions. But for me, where I also saw that the DA may have gone a step further, where it says in that letter, its participation at the national level also depends will then determine what happens in Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal. And I sit here and ask myself, one of the things that John kept saying, John Steenhuisen, was that they would do everything in their power to prevent what they call a doomsday coalition, which is a coalition that will include the EFF and the MK party.
Yes, yes.
And then you look at the tone of the letter, particularly that sentence which speaks about that participation. I mean, the EFF, is on record to say we are willing to take part in the government of national unity, provided there is no DA. If the DA, for example, were to walk out, even if not looking at the minority government. So the other parties that are still outside can easily go in.
And it seems a number of them are joining now,
exactly,
which some are saying is probably the strategy that the ANC might employ going forward, where they seek to now dilute the influence of the Democratic Alliance in this GNU. Are you perhaps seeing something like that, where they're testing waters by bringing in or inviting more political parties?
You know, when this whole setup started, there were three scenarios on the table. It was the GNU, which is what we assist with now. It was the coalition, perhaps grand coalition, which some people think this is somehow has features of the coalition. And then the minority government. Look at the parties that have become part of the GNU, the smaller parties. Clearly, they can get over the line now in terms of forming government. But I think they will still want to then be committed, as they've said in the respective letters that they've written. They are committed into this GNU, but I guess time will tell in terms of whether they agree on a number of areas. But I don't see the DA sticking to these demands or these preferences after engaging with the ANC, because I can tell you the ANC would engage a bit differently from what you are seeing here.
Perhaps if it were not 11 cabinet posts, but let's move it to 5. Would it not make sense, though, for them to be demanding that of those ministerial posts, let's also take deputies, and also we want DGs? Because here you don't want a disjointed effort. I'd like to believe that even if it were 3 ministerial posts, if you've got the political head, you've also got the one that heads it administratively, then you've got that collaborative effort, that if you want to make sure that come the next elections, you are graded by your constituency, you need to have made a meaningful impact.
But also, let's just recognize the fact that these are negotiations. If I want to get as much as I could from you, I'll pitch very, very high, knowing that I'll probably settle somewhere there, down there. So those 12 posts the DA is perhaps is requesting, so they know very well that they could they could as well get half of it. It probably would still be sufficient for them, but you must go there, you must go to negotiate with something.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And then on the deputy presidency, at some point it seemed as though that was a no-go area, but they've put it on the table that it's either deputy presidency position or they get minister in the presidency.
It's part of the negotiating plan for them to try and get influential and strategic positions, because they really do want their policies to materialize in government, because they want to show, in fact, as much as these parties are going to the government of national unity, it would be interesting because all of them will be wanting to outshine each other.
Yes.
But maybe it's good for us as South Africans because that means better service delivery. They'll be wanting to outshine each other to show that they are the better party going to, remember, in 2 years' time, we're going to have local government elections.
Yes.
And then, of course, putting you in a good stead for 2 years later for national government.
Which is quite interesting why some people would criticize the likes of Gayton McKenzie from Patriotic Alliance, who went on to state that, yes, what is stalling these discussions now is the jostling for positions. Yeah. But he also stated, I think last week, that, listen, what would it all be for? We can't just be voting with the ANC. We would be voting with the ANC because there's something that we would benefit. Yes. And what we want to benefit is power. Power to make meaningful change for their own constituency, because they'll be asked the question, what have you done in government? Why did you go?
Oh, yes. The reason why all those parties, Mfundo, contest, they contest because they want to wrestle power from whoever is the governing party. If then the opportunity for you does come that have some impact, so you want to do exactly that. And that's what they are doing. Even the DA, as much as people will say, oh, they're aiming too high, because they contested to get power, they couldn't. Here is an opportunity for them to get the power, so they're trying as much as they can, as hard as possible to get that. So every political party that contests elections wants power. There's nothing new and different here.
Mzwandile, just in closing, do you see the ANC letting go of any portfolios within the security cluster? That's your justice, your police, your SANDF.
Remember, I don't see them do that. I don't see them do that. They can have compromises here and there, but some of those key portfolios, I mean, whether it's your international relations, because those also define the country. I mean, right now, South Africa has a case at the ICJ, and everyone knows that is the ANC-led government that pushed that one. Just imagine if you were then to change all of that. And then, of course, the security of the country, you would always want to know what exactly is happening, but it is interesting to see how far the DA could go, but I'm sure other parties as well. So once the president announces, so we'll see what exactly they're getting. It will be very interesting. It's in a couple of days. It's going to happen.
Let's hope so. It is in a couple of days. Mzwandile, as always, thank you very much for your time. That's SABC News Political Editor Mzwandile Mbeje.